For most of history, Greenland was kind of this vast, frozen afterthought, right? Just this giant island at the edge of the world. But now it's a global flashpoint. It's at the center of this really startling idea from the United States, one that could literally reshape the world order. So today, we're going to unpack exactly why America wants to buy Greenland and what the monumental stakes are for, well, the entire Western alliance. And look, just in case you thought this was some kind of fringe idea, listen to this. Obviously, Greenland should be part of the United States. That's from a former senior advisor in the White House. So yeah, this isn't just some thought experiment. It is a serious geopolitical ambition. And that brings up the big question, right? Why? Okay, so a massive real estate deal. That's what it was called. But let's be honest, on the surface, it seems kind of baffling, doesn't it? To a lot of people, Greenland is just, well, a frozen wasteland. So what is the real story here? What could possibly transform this huge block of ice into one of the most valuable strategic assets on the entire planet? And this is where things get really interesting, because you have this incredible contrast. I mean, look at the reality of Greenland today. The population is tiny, less than 60,000 people. The whole economy is basically fish and a big check from Denmark every year. But then you look at what it represents as a geopolitical prize. We're talking Arctic dominance, trillions with a T of dollars and resources, and control over future global trade. It's this huge disconnect, this massive gap between what it is and what it could be that's driving all this American interest. All right, so let's dig into that geopolitical prize a little deeper. And believe me, the value here isn't just about what's buried under all that ice, though don't worry, we are absolutely gonna get to that. First and foremost, it's about one simple thing: location, location, location. So if you could just picture a globe, looking down from the top, from the North Pole, what do you see? You see Greenland, sitting right there in the middle, almost perfectly between Washington, D.C. and Moscow. For decades, this has made it essentially America's unsinkable aircraft carrier in the Arctic. It's this absolutely crucial radar and observation post for any potential missile attack coming right over the top of the world. And this really breaks down that dual advantage. On the military side, you get 15 to 20 extra minutes of warning time. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but in the world of intercontinental missiles, that could literally be the difference between intercepting a nuke and losing a city. It's huge. And then there's the economic side. As the Arctic ice melts, that fabled Northwest Passage, it's not a myth anymore. It's becoming a reality. So if you control Greenland, you basically control the toll booth on a new global superhighway for trade, one that's going to save shipping companies an absolute fortune. But as crucial as that strategic location is, it's really only half the story. The real jackpot, the multi-trillion-dollar reason for all this, is buried. It's just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked as the planet warms up. Okay, first up, energy. We're talking about a staggering amount of oil. The U.S. Geological Survey thinks Greenland is sitting on something like 17.5 billion barrels of undiscovered oil. Let me put that in perspective for you. That is enough oil to fuel every single car in the United States for almost 4 years. Just think about that. And it doesn't stop with oil. Nope. The Arctic as a whole is thought to hold about 30% of all the world's undiscovered natural gas. And Greenland has a huge slice of that pie. So you can see why, in Washington's eyes, Greenland isn't just some big island. It's potentially the next Saudi Arabia. The crucial thing to get here is just the sheer scale of this wealth. I mean, we're not just talking about oil and gas. We're talking billions of tons of iron ore, zinc, lead, even uranium. You add it all up, and the estimated value is, well, it's in the trillions of dollars. That's more than the entire economy of a country like India or the United Kingdom. It's mind-boggling. But maybe the most critical resource for our century is rare earth minerals. I'm talking about the stuff that's in everything. Your phone, electric cars, F-35 fighter jets, you name it. And get this, Greenland has deposits of 25 of the 34 minerals that the U.S. considers absolutely critical. So securing this supply, it's not just about money. It's about fixing the Achilles heel of Western technology. Because right now, that entire supply chain is basically controlled by China. Now, all of this recent talk might make this seem like a sudden thing, right? But America's interest in Greenland, oh, it is anything but new. This is a strategic game that goes back more than a century, full of secret deals and some pretty fascinating history.
So for a long, long time, Greenland was firmly Danish territory. But then came World War II, and that changed everything. See, when Germany occupied Denmark, the U.S. basically stepped in. They set up bases and turned Greenland into what was, for all intents and purposes, an American protectorate. And suddenly, its strategic value was crystal clear. So clear, in fact, that in 1946, President Truman secretly went to Denmark and offered them $100 million in gold for the island. That's over $1.5 billion in today's money. Denmark said no, but you can bet America's interest didn't just disappear.
Okay, so history tells us the why. We get it. But that brings us to the next big question, the how. How could the U.S. actually pull this off in the 21st century? Well, analysts think there might be a kind of playbook for this, a multi-step strategy that mixes public talk with some serious economic muscle. So here's how that potential strategy could play out. Step 1, you test the waters. You float the seemingly absurd idea publicly, just to see how people react. We've seen that happen. Step 2 gets more direct. You go to Greenland's government. Now, they have the right to become independent, but they rely on a huge annual payment from Denmark, about $600 million. The U.S. could just offer to replace that subsidy, and probably add a lot more on top. Essentially bankroll their independence in exchange for control. And then there's step 3, the gloves-off approach. If diplomacy fails, you use coercion. You start hitting Denmark with targeted tariffs, inflict economic pain, and basically try to force them to make a deal. And this is where the whole story pivots. We go from something that sounds like a real estate deal to a full-blown global crisis. Because trying to acquire the territory of one of your own allies, especially a NATO ally, by force or coercion, that doesn't just create a little tension. It threatens to shatter the entire foundation of the Western world. Now take a look at this, because it really puts the power dynamics in perspective. Of course, the U.S. is the world's #1 military superpower, no question. But Europe is far from helpless. You're talking about millions of soldiers, thousands of aircraft, and, oh yeah, 2 independent nuclear powers in France and the UK. A conflict here wouldn't be simple. It would be an absolutely catastrophic break between the most powerful democracies on Earth. And the tripwire for that rupture? It's called Article 5 of the NATO Treaty. For 75 years, this has been the absolute bedrock of Western security. An attack on one is an attack on all. Simple. But think about it. An aggressive American move on Denmark, a founding member of NATO, would force every single other ally to choose sides. The UK, France, Germany, Canada, everyone. The very idea that has kept the peace for decades would be completely turned on its head. The potential fallout from something like this is just staggering. You could see a devastating transatlantic trade war. Europe has what it calls a trade bazooka of tariffs ready to go. You could see the collapse of NATO, the most successful military alliance in history, just gone. And what's the ultimate result of all that? A fractured, weakened West, completely unable to present a united front, and that would hand a massive geopolitical victory to rivals like Russia and China, and they wouldn't have to fire a single shot to get it. So that brings us right back to the central question, doesn't it? This whole Greenland proposition forces us to look at a monumental choice. Is controlling this icy island an essential price to pay for America's future security, or is it a prize so tempting that just going for it could break the very alliance that has defined our modern world? The answer to that question, well, it's going to shape the next 100 years.